Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a July 13th edition of the MSP Initiative MSP Talk. Time is flying by, especially when it's the summer months here in North America. Everybody's out and about, and it's always an interesting 3-month shuffle here. Before we get into all the good stuff, let's just do some general housekeeping, get it out of the way. We do it at the beginning of all of these sessions. MSPinitiative.com. This is where you find everything that we do here for IT and MSP land. This session, every other session we've ever recorded, is available here in podcast and video format under the sessions tab. So feel free to drop by a little bit after this, and you will find this very session there. We have an event called MSP Community Minds coming up next month in Denver, August 14th and 15th. We have a ton of people from around MSP and IT land. Some are MSPs that will be on panels. Some will be actual workshops with experts that you otherwise would be paying hundreds of dollars an hour to give you a little bit of, more than PowerPoints, right? We want you to actually work on something. Could be your contracts with Brad Gross, bring your MSA with you. Maybe it's learning about the worst day in the life of the MSP with Matt Lee about cybersecurity and a bunch of other stuff. This is absolutely 100% free to MSPs to register. This is our tour bus converted into a knowledge event for the community. We're paying you back a little bit by trying to help you out. So check it out next month. I would love to see you there in Denver. Now we have our 3 remaining community block parties for the year. These are the ones that everybody loves. We have the MSP Community Boat Party with our friends over at Taylor Business Group and the Big Conference. Check it out. I would love you to see if Big is for you. But if not, if you're in South Florida, I know a lot of you are, you could jump on this for an evening and, join us as if you're an MSP. And then there's the DataCon Miami party. We had a great event in Dublin. We're doing the US version of this now, so stay tuned for that. And then lastly is like the big one we do in Orlando every year in November. Last year, we had the All-American Rejects. This year, we're very close to announcing our special band, performer for the community. We have some MSP community offers. So these are just companies from around the industry that are giving you guys some cool hookups. Check those out. And then we have our industry calendar, which is kind of what we do in the beginning of every year, just homework. If we're missing any events off of this, just hit submit your event and we'll get it on the calendar. Just, so you know what's happening in the industry, nothing more, nothing less. So there it is, MSPinitiative.com. All that being said, today's special speaker from dawning originally from Philadelphia. So I got my Eagles gear on today. Jimmy from Cyberqp. How you doing today, buddy?
Birch, beautiful, wonderful. I am doing great. I was in Dallas yesterday, the most hated sports city that we could have, and it was 105 degrees and
crazy, dude.
Crazy humidity. So it's hot up here. I'm in New York now, as you know. But I am, no offense to my friends down there. Some good friends, good business relationships down there. I know we have sports rivalry, but I'm glad to be out of that heat.
Yeah, I know we all love Texas for various reasons, not for their sports, agreed. But 105 degrees is definitely not what I'd be signing up for, unless you're just going from one air conditioning to another, and probably is not happening across the board. It's actually kind of nice up in our area finally for these months, right? So, and for all the people that live in Arizona or some desert area in August and September, I don't know, man. 100 degrees at 12 o'clock at night is not. It's hard to even comprehend, to be honest. Like, and I still have that one time where my shoes melted in Arizona, and I was like, "What?" And I ended up having to buy new shoes. No joke.
Wow.
So it's a downtime. I call this filler time with a PH because that's when the Phillies play and the Eagles are off. But that's just Philly jargon. And football season is around the corner, and man, I'm so pumped. If we can make another run for the Super Bowl, I'm still, I won't lie to you, Jimmy. I'm still a little bit not totally over the turf gate and like what happened in the Super Bowl with I don't know, man. I
Yeah.
thought that was W.
You won't be for like the next 20, 30 years, like for sure. So I know you'll still be talking about it, but
Yeah, maybe if they go back and win one, then maybe I'll forget about it a little bit.
yeah, probably be like, they would have won two if it wasn't for Turfgate.
Sodgate, Turfgate,
Sodgate, yeah, I
and
don't know,
then
man. I mean, I like you'd think that in the Super Bowl they'd have a working field that players can, stand on properly, but I don't know.
$800,000 and they can't figure
Yeah,
out a field. I don't get it. But hey,
yeah,
you run $1 billion event. I would hope that's a checkbox. So tell me, Jimmy, what's happening in your world, right? I mean, the MSP land is constantly fluxing, and I know you guys have a lot of things going on, and would love to hear what's cooking in your kitchen.
yeah. I mean, two big things in my kitchen going on. I would say the first is our event next week. We are, we are partnering with the Center for Information Security down in Texas, back in Dallas. So might be 105 again. I don't know. And we're doing a workshop there. So we have about I think like 80, 90 MSPs coming out for this training. We're going to go through secure the controls, CIS controls 1 through 5 as example, show MSPs how to do it, how to match up the people and the process, not just the technology, because I think everybody in the MSP world is like, let me throw tools at this when, hey, we got to assign people on top of it. We got to, build out a process for it. And we're going to have a good time too. We're going to beat the heat. We're going to have the AC pumping, and we're going to, have a couple parties there. It's not going to be like an MSP Initiative party. I mean, once we get bigger events, George, we'll bring you in and, have a true all-American rejects, or who knows, you guys do it big. But I'm excited for that. That's next week. That's top of mind for me. I'd say the second thing is, our new product stuff with the just-in-time accounts. We've been out there pushing for MSPs to move away from shared passwords, and move to a zero standing privilege model. And basically, it's a whole change for MSPs and the way people operate, because we've been on shared passwords for a long time for customer environments. And before we released, our just-in-time account product, there wasn't really an easy way for MSPs to do it, for having named accounts for every customer. There's some good software out there, and don't want to knock anybody or anything like that. There's some good MSP software that can automate the creation of, admin accounts for every one of your techs on all your servers. But, the way we're doing it now is a zero standing privilege model, where you don't have admin accounts created and out there. And then when techs need them, the accounts are created and then they're deactivated when they're done, a couple hours later. So I don't know, man. I talked a lot, but those are the only two things I can think about right now.
No, I mean, listen, it's I think there's no question that things that have been done for a long time for maybe convenience, probably don't work moving forward, right? So like that's where that one feature probably touches on that. I mean, like, listen, we talk to all the smart guys in the industry, and I call it the sandbox, all the time. And like, I think if they don't see it, they don't care about it, is the right way to say it. But I don't think that you can do that anymore, because the bad guys aren't stupid either, right? So the security conversation just continues to grow. And some of it's just practical stuff, to be honest, right? And I think there's just a time problem in a lot of MSPs, because we all know that there's more clients than there are people in the company, to manage them. And like there's always that imbalance, right? So, and I think the other problem is that not everybody has a security expert on staff, right? They rely on third parties, right, to do a lot of that stuff. And the last part of my thought there is, what you do this year may not work next year, right? Like there's an evolution to all of this on when it comes to the word security. And like, you can't just say, hey, here's my stack. And then next year, you might need to make a change. Like it may not be the same stuff. You can't wait 3 years, to make a change. So to some degree, that complicates things on both sides of the aisle, because who's keeping up on that on the MSP side, Jimmy? And then how do they go back to their customers and like not look like they keep putting their hand out? Where's the balance?
No, and I think a lot of it has like we're an ecosystem, right? Shane McBain's out there saying that, and everybody's sort of moved to understand that. You and I, if MSPs get popped left and right, and things go south for the industry and people stop using MSPs, like it's a big problem for us, so and we're not the only ones, right? So there's been a long, there's a lot of arrogance in cybersecurity. I mean, it's no secret, cyber people, big cyber people, generalizing here, will tend to be a bit more arrogant and oh, you should have been doing this, blah, 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 blah. But we need to rethink that. And that's why I love everything that you guys are doing with the MSP Initiative and trainings and help, let's meet people where they're at and lift them up, and not be like, well, if you're not doing this, then I don't even know why you should be in business. Shut up, MSPs are out there, taking calls all day, trying to help people with their business. And, we're throwing more at them every day. They got to do more security, more security, more security. And then, it's the approach of, we got to help people. We got to meet MSPs where they're at. We got to help build them up. We got to improve their security wherever we can. Trainings like we're doing with CIS. I knew some other people are doing lots of similar trainings and lots of cybersecurity trainings and, community oriented stuff. Instead of just being like, if you don't do this, then you don't even deserve to be in business. Because the people who say that, they're the ones who won't be in business.
Yeah, you want to call that technology shaming, fine, put whatever words you want to that. I mean, every time I ever went to the whole Paul Dipple seminar where he's like, well, here's your operational maturity number, and here's what you need to do to get to the next level. And then you did all this work, they're like, oh, cool, now you're restarting from scratch, you need to do all this stuff. And you're like, when does it end? I used to call him Dr. Doom, right? Because every time you talk to him, you have a new set of stuff to do. But there's a little bit of you don't know. It's almost like the end users. All right, let me rephrase it this way. IT is one of the top 5 most hated industries still in business. I don't know if you knew that, right? Lawyers, insurance, they're just talking about stuff that the average check signer doesn't totally understand, right? And so every time you go to your mechanic and they're like, oh, well, this manifold or this sensor, this, that, and this, that, and then that's why your car's broken. You're like, I have no idea what that means. How much does it cost to fix? And what do I need to do to be back on the road? So back to the whole, that same complex, that same feeling is now going back into MSP and the vendor, right? And I think that, or MSP and the expert, right? And I think that that's one of the challenges in the industry, right? Rather more of a community-based approach where we're all learning rather than, hey, you're bad because you're not doing. But a comment you made earlier still applies here, right? Every time somebody's name ends up in a headline somewhere, we all take a hit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's unavoidable, right? And then you mentioned CISA, they're kind of on the same boat where they're they put out some things over the last 12, 24 months where it's be careful of the MSP, or if you don't need an MSP, don't use it. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What are you saying here? Are you giving the entire subvertical a black eye? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, look, you need managed IT services. You need managed cyber services too. The cupcake shop or whatever it is, or the small doctor's office or small, they're not going to be able to afford or have enough work for an internal resource, right? So you're always going to need an MSP. And then even as things get more and more complicated, the bigger companies need MSPs too, because even the amount of tools that MSPs need to evaluate, throughout the year and swap stuff in and have a good stack, like that's like multiple people's full-time jobs. So even like, couple hundred people companies, it still makes sense for them financially for sure, to bring in an MSP in a lot of cases. So like this like philosophy of like, oh, this MSP did this, or got security breached, or MSPs touch a lot of people, so there's a lot of risk there, so you don't use them, is like, it's like, why are we even talking about that? Because they're like, MSPs aren't going to go away. The industry's growing, the industry's booming. Private equity is throwing like massive amounts of money in because they know it's booming and they know it's growing. So like, let's fix it together. Let's improve things together.
100%. Let's talk about that part for a second, because this may be a little bit off the beaten trail here, but like a lot of people, Jimmy, say that the private equity venture capital part of the whole industry has maybe soured people on how things are going. And, whether it's the business model, right, and the terms that come along with it versus the, at what point does innovation stop and just prices go up, right? Like it's counter to, so, my opinion on this is pretty loud, but I want to hear your opinion on, is this a good path forward? And is there a median ground in between the service provider and the vendor when it comes to this whole conversation, or is it always a ticking time bomb?
Sure. So, lot to unpack there. So one thing I'll say, right, there's private equity in MSPs themselves, right? So before, say, the past couple of years, private equity was experimenting in the MSP world, and maybe they throw $50 million or $25 million or $100 million towards a project to do an MSP roll-up, where they basically buy a couple MSPs, put them all together, get better pricing, get better, economies of scale, and then, they spent whatever $50 million on all the companies, and now they have a company worth $100 million or whatever it is, right? However the economics are. That is a good exit opportunity for a lot of MSP business owners. That brings a lot of more due diligence for a lot of MSP business owners necessary, right? It brings more maturity to our industry. It brings in a greater focus on private equity KPIs, right? Like EBITDA and margin, and takes away focus on the customer experience. I'm not saying every roll-up's bad. I know there's some great ones. And I know there's some great private equity backed, big MSPs that can do the customer experience at scale. But traditionally, when private equity comes in business, they're looking to cut costs and increase profits. And in many cases, a customer can suffer in that. So you have your positives and negatives there. Is it a positive or a negative that, you're, you can go to any, Jefferson Health in Philly, outpatient, right? And they have your medical records at all of them because they bought up every single small, outpatient provider in the past couple of years, or Penn Health or NovaCare, whatever, the different ones that came in, right? That same thing happened 10 years ago to a lot of the healthcare industry. It's happening to IT. It's going to continue on that path. That's the MSP side. The vendor side, there is a reality check happening right now in venture capital and private equity, where previously it was very common for companies to run at a massive loss, say in the past 20-15 years during this bull cycle, because the fundraising money was always there. So with that, MSPs benefited tremendously from really great products built really fast for a really low price, because you can do that a lot easier when you're burning $100 million over the course of 5 years with no expectation to become a profitable company. Now, a lot of MSPs hate when venture capital funded things, right, which are yay, exciting, accelerate, grow, improve, lots of money, to a traditionally private equity backed thing, because private equity will usually, in most cases, turn it profitable. That means raising prices, that means cutting costs. The reality is there's a big gap happening between the two, right? Between venture capital and private equity. So then you have this giant shock happening between it, where all of a sudden prices are getting crazy up, whole teams are getting laid off, all that. When the private equity back thing is just going, well, look, we're just making this a profitable business, and then the MSP is just suffering in the interim. Now, there's definitely, there is somewhere in between where companies are, bootstrapped like yourself, and need to use their own capital and be a lot smarter with it and a lot more efficient with it and grow. Continue, they don't have hundreds of millions of dollars to drop on, massive teams and marketing budgets and all that. But from a venture capital perspective, because the fundraising isn't always there, you're going to see a lot more exits to private equity, and you're going to see higher prices, because what's happening in venture capital is companies, SaaS companies, are starting to become profitable. So now MSPs all over the place are like this is my prediction, over the next 2 years, they're going to be like, why is this company doubling their prices? Why is this company raising their prices? Why is this price so high? Why is this price so high? Blah, 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 blah. That is the only way that you can avoid the big shock between running at a loss to, private equity, like chop, 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 we're going to make a profit off it. So I think, like, it's just, I don't know. I'm talking a lot here, but I got big opinions.
No, I mean, I always like to, get everybody's feedback on this, because every time I go into a Reddit and a Discord and a Slack and a Facebook and like anywhere where people can type, I feel like they're all complaining about this all the time. And it's like,
yeah,
I don't think people realize what's happening underneath the hood. And that's why we try and understand what's going on in front of you, so that you can better prepare as a person downstream for the inevitable change.
the only way we can break this cycle of, super cheap, super expensive, is higher prices across the board. Less, steak dinners and, getting flown out places and big MDF dollars. Like that's just what has to happen. And most people don't like that. They don't want that. I've paid my price for whatever this tool is for this long. I don't care if you're running it at a loss, but like, if you want companies to remain independent, you want them to become sustainable companies that generate profit for the owners of the companies, the shareholders, just like you as an MSP want to generate profit for yourself. They're going to have to, do things to become profitable. So I don't know. It's kind of like I laugh a little bit to myself, because it's like, oh, this keeps happening, but then the solution to stop it, is not a solution anybody wants to hear.
It brings me to my next thought, and just let me put it all out there. Don't get jumpy here. A lot of people have said the system is broken, right? Like, too many events, too many, very expensive things to put on. There's a lot of, and like my school of thought's always been, hey, like, we can collaborate, right? We're not all running on individual lanes of the highway. We can package multiple companies together and cost share things in order to get to a good outcome, rather than the $150,000 platinum, whatever, sponsorship. Like, you guys do a lot of stuff. I know you have some people tied into your event next week, right? Like, we do a lot of stuff with a lot of people as a vendor, and as MSP Initiative, it's all collaboration, right? Like, is that a possible path forward, or do you feel like that's too slow based on the expectations of the money spenders?
I don't think it gets. No, I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger. I mean, look up market, right? Like RSA and those types of events never got cheaper. Like, I think it's just gonna. events are going to get bigger. There's going to be more of them, and the bubbles keep getting bigger. I don't think we're anywhere close to it. Having a correction. I don't know. I mean, it could be wrong, but
Okay. What about, going back to the competitive landscape for a second, right? Like we all
sure.
have competitors in the space, right? And we can name them all, right? Like as my other company, right, in the VoIP space, there's Citricom, there's Intermedia, there's Nextiva and RingCentral and Vonage and all those guys, right? It's kind of a crowded space. But when it comes to companies that like concentrate on MSP, like our MSP focus, there's a
Yeah, it's a
handful, right?
handful. Yeah.
And like, listen, when it comes to security, like the names of companies just explode, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you could have the very big guys, right? And you could have the really small guys that are MSP focused, right? Like, who your competitors are in the space, right? You got the guys down in Tampa, you got, the guys on the West Coast as well, right? There's all these people building stuff. At the end of the day, like, is there too much overlap happening, or can you combine multiple solutions where it's profitable, it makes sense, there's profitability in, having multiple vendors check different boxes?
I mean, like markets always move towards consolidation just in general, and that's why you see, acquisitions and mergers and that kind of stuff. People usually want one throat to choke or one place to go or a discount if they get all their services. It's tons of MSPs. I'm standardized on ConnectWise, I'm standardized on Kaseya. And that's why a lot of tools get tucked into that portfolio. Now, with that being said, like the space security gets really niched down, right? So like previous area that I was in was, Security Operations Center, MDR, eventually XDR, and SOC, SIM, all that. Where when I entered the market, there was like Blackpoint, Scout, and Perch, and there were a couple of them, right? And Blackpoint's still doing their thing. They just raised whatever $100 million from Bain or
$190
however much.
million. Yeah, it's crazy.
190. Shout out to John and his whole team. That's like amazing. It was a great job. That's that's a gold star for the industry, by the way. Showing something like that. But when Perch was acquired by ConnectWise and Scout was acquired by Barracuda, and now there's like 5,000 MDR providers, like a million. Like I go to the conference, I'm like, wow, I am, I had fun in this business, but I was glad I was here before all this competition came in. And like I tend to be an early adopter of things, is like what I look for when I join a company. And I'm in privileged access management, and like you mentioned the guys down in Tampa, like we maybe have 10-20% product overlap, if that, right? And there's tons of partners that are on our partner advisory council and are on their partner advisory council, right? And you have them using both services. Over time, if we both become full suites or not, or merge or whatever, I don't know. I don't know where that's going to go. But I think like that there's plenty of room. Nobody's like it's not a winner takes all thing here, and like there's lots of MSPs, there's tons of MSPs in the space. Like when we were coming up, there was plenty of customers for Scout to have, and then plenty for Perch to have, and then plenty for Blackpoint to have, right? It's not like it's an RMM or a PSA, where it's already commoditized in the whole market, where you're just trying to displace competitors, right? Which is a whole different thing, right? This is a market, a new area of security where maybe 10% of MSPs have started adopting pieces of this technology, and there's 10 different pieces of the technology that need to be adopted. And you can go to 10 different vendors or 2 different vendors or 3 different vendors to have the different pieces. So like my take on it is like, we're all in this together, right? We're educating the market. We're going to grow, in the same tailwinds together, right? Of people starting to adopt privileged access management solutions, and people and MSPs improving their identity access management. Like that's how it goes. Like it's a big market. It's big.
No, it's 100% right. Let me ask you this question, because I ask everybody and they all come up with a different number. What's your understanding of how many MSPs there are? Some people say there's 70,000. Some people say there's
Yeah.
150,000. What's the number that you work from?
Well, how are we defining MSP? Do they have to have at least 5 employees? I would say,
Um,
I would say
that's a
in
good
North
question, right? Because
America,
they're all acronyms that get smushed together, right?
I would say in North America, if you're counting MSPs that offer managed IT services on a monthly recurring basis that have more than say 5 to 10 employees plus, and cut off the maturity there, you're probably in the 20 to 25,000, 20 to 30,000 range. Now, if you bring it down and anyone offering managed services, right, it can be a 2-person shop, a 3-person shop, a 5-person shop. You get into the 50,000 range, maybe higher. I don't know. It's hard to count. And then if you think of it, anyone who can resell a Datto device, right? Because that's where we got a lot of these numbers from. That's how you get into the 100,000 or 150,000. Because you have, like people doing break fix IT, people, who have like 3 clients, like they become, resellers for the service, and it may be the only monthly recurring service that they resell. The rest is just billed. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know. Like there's reports that say 50,000, that say 70,000, that say there's 50,000 in Europe alone. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I try and look at, and we don't have all the data, right? I'm sure somebody in these companies do, right? If you look at what's happening on Kaseya land when they take I don't know, how many companies are there? 35, 6, 7, I don't know. And you smash them all together. What's the number of unique numbers? ConnectWise did the same thing, right? Where they had the PSA, the RMM, and like their 2 or 3 or 4 core products. And they said, hey, what's the unique overlap or unique number once they overlap all their products? And they said it was like 20 something thousand. At PaxSafe Beyond, I feel like it's a month ago now, they said that they're almost at 30,000 partners, right? And like there was a lot more to go. So like I would say if we just talked about North America, I'm thinking there's 60 to 70,000 companies that fit the criteria. So once you move out of North America, and I'm sure Jay McBain out there, so he can send me a message, but once you move out of North America and you talk about, Europe and Asia and like those regions, I think that together, there's probably an equal number amount as North America. So when you add those 2 numbers together, that's how you get to this global number of 140, 150, somewhere around there. I don't know, could be wrong, but that's what I think's happening.
I believe it.
So like coming back, what reason I asked that number is like, how many actively transacting partners is enough to be like legitimate? Is it 1,000? Is it 20,000? Like, what's the magic number where you think like hey, I'm for real? I'm in the game. I'm at the big boy table.
It all depends, man. It depends on a lot of things. If you're selling something for cheap just to MSPs to buy, you gotta have 10,000 of them, or 5,000 of them. If you're selling something that is expensive, that goes wide and deep inside an MSP, you can have a couple hundred MSPs and be in the $10 million in annual recurring revenue, usually. So like partner number is kind of, like I think like 1,000 partners is definitely like you've been around here and lots of people know you. But you could have companies doing a lot more revenue and touching a lot more endpoints with 300 partners, say, than companies with 4,000 partners.
Yeah. Well, to your point, right? Math is important.
Yeah.
You're right. If everybody's doing $1 million a year, I probably don't need 1,000 partners. Yeah, 100%. I know 1,000 partners, like you said, is like usually a good benchmarking, kind of number. And I don't know, $10 million in revenue is probably one of those big numbers, right? Where, like you circle a number and you're like, all right, these people are, have made it to the table kind of thing. I don't know. That's what I
think
hear.
of companies that are doing more than 5 million in revenue, that hasn't been bought by another company, hasn't been acquired, and aren't part of an enterprise play that are fully channel, the room gets pretty small. So,
Yeah.
like pretty quick, because a lot of companies get up to like a couple, 3, 4, 5 million in ARR and then get bought and spun in. So there's not a lot of independent MSP, fully MSP focused companies that are doing, that much revenue.
No, I'm just trying to like, everybody just talks in vague things, right? That's why I try and get into the nitty gritties during these sessions, right? So we can all be, kind of see where everybody lands. But I appreciate, your opinion on things, because ultimately MSPs out here who listen to this type of information can start to really understand why things by the time they get to them are the way that they are, right? And like, if you're going to go back to your vendor partner of choice and have a business conversation, you really need to be standing on concrete and not quicksand. Yeah. So if it's a true partnership and everybody's getting something out of it, like, you need to be reasonable and like understand how the math works before you can go and ask for something, I think. Yeah, that's how I like to approach things, for sure. Let me take another direction at you.
Okay.
I think in the mid and early like the 2010s, right? Like, remote work started to creep up. And then the pandemic just forced the agenda, right? And I think now, as we've hopefully we don't see another pandemic in our lifetime. How do you view hiring in remote areas when you're building out your team, right? Like, I've always said that I've always been remote. I've always been hiring remote, like even from the inception of my MSP and the inception of my, the company that I started after my MSP. But one of the things that's been really eye-opening over my journey has been, it's harder to train people that aren't in the same place. The osmosis, effect that happens when everybody's in the same office learning from, like, conversations that are happening around them aren't happening. And like, you really don't even know if the person's going to work out in the time period that you expect, because it just elongates everything. Those are my things that I've seen, but like, I'm curious from your perspective, because you've been doing a lot of hiring and you've built teams out now. What's your position?
So, I work for a remote only company. We have a couple satellite offices. I'm here in a WeWork right now. We have an office in Vancouver, and we have a bunch of people up there. But it works great for us. It works really great. And yes, bringing people up to speed and having a sales bullpen where people are, able to pick up things off the fly off each other. Like, that stuff's hard. So you have to, first of all, if you want to be successful as a remote company, you have to set yourself up to be a remote company. So you have to over-index on Slack, Teams, Confluence, SharePoint, whatever it is. Like, the remote collaboration tools, those have to be a part of the culture of the company. If you're still emailing freaking versions of documents back and forth and talking all through email and trying to be a remote company, like, it's not going to work, right? You're just taking like being an in-person and then, moving it remote. And like, that's where I think a lot of the complaints around remote work or criticisms come from. But if you set it up from the get-go or from the gate, saying, here's how we're going to onboard employees remotely, and here's how people are going to learn, and here's a knowledge base that we created, and here's a training platform that we use, and here's, how we're going to do check-ins, and we're going to over-index on this, and, we can work asynchronously, so we don't have the whole team sitting in Zoom meetings all day, right? We can ensure they're being productive, but also, let them have time to themselves to like actually get work done and not just sit in a meeting. It works. And look, like, I'm in New York City. It's the second most expensive city to hire in North America, and definitely top 5 in the world, if not top 3. And it's just unfeasible for me to hire a whole team here versus get the best people remote where they're at, right? Like, It's I like being able to work with the best people. It doesn't matter where they are, where they live. I like to keep a team as small as possible and work with great people, and it's gonna be fine if you can do that. And maybe we'll run into problems when we become a 500 if we become a 500 person company, but I don't know.
No, that's fair. I mean, um, sometimes it's hard to figure out if you found a really good person until they're in the chair, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, so I don't know. Tradition, hey, 90 days to figure out if you fit the job. Does that even work anymore, Jimmy? Like, is that even a reasonable amount of time to figure out somebody who's working on the remote that they can do the gig?
Um, I'll tell you what, I brought in Nadia Cares' Oreos to our team in November, December of last year while I was on paternity leave. She started while I was on paternity leave. Um, and with the, sole purpose of director of hosted events. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing with creating events. You were on the original, you planned DattoCon multiple times, with lots of other people too, but like, what you're doing, right? So, had I given her, 90 days to, prove that she can throw an event, it's just not possible. We had to do the road shows all over the country, and sometimes like two people showed up. I think once or twice nobody showed up, and a couple times we had 30, 40 people show up. It was great, and we learned a lot. We had to go through all that pain, and it took a long time, and there's a certain amount of patience there. And that's a strategic role, right? And there's a bet that comes with the company with hiring someone like that and doing something like that. But like, if you want to, make it doing big strategic things, and you place your bets carefully, like you gotta give people time to ride that out. Now, on the other hand, if you have, a very specific type of marketing role or a very specific type of sales role, and like the person can't, I don't know, like, you can't, like, in some cases you can just figure out if somebody's not a culture fit or something, and it can happen quicker. But you got to have patience with some people too.
Fair enough. Everybody has this love-hate relationship on both sides of the aisle with vendors emailing and phone calling them. It just boggles my mind sometimes where it's like we have entire riffs and threads with people saying, don't call me, don't email me, don't look at me, don't mail me, don't send a carrier pigeon. And I'm like, how do you generate net new business for your company then? Like, let's have a serious conversation about it, right? Like, as an MSP, like, you grow, I guess, through referral. We know that. But like, at some point, you need to do some outbound marketing of some sort, right? And like, these are the same things you need to do as an MSP that your vendors do in order to work with you. Do you feel like what is the right cadence? Whether it's a trade show, whether it's, you have a marketing campaign that's cold, whatever, like what do you think is a reasonable cadence?
A great question, George. Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm getting hit with 50 emails a day and calls and all that stuff from people. It's not a problem unique to our industry. I will say I don't necessarily think it's the volume that's as important as the quality. I think that there's a lot of like really shitty outreach. And one thing that I'm trying to do a lot better at is catching context at a show. So what could be frustrating if I was an MSP, George, if I walk up to you, say you're not there, right? Say this person has an amazing conversation with Alec. They say, I'm using this specific type of phone system. Here are my 4 biggest problems with it. Alec mentions a couple features that you have, right? Yeah, they have a great conversation. And then a week later, the show list is sent to somebody on your sales team that just starts calling and emailing this guy with the same stuff. Meanwhile, the guy told Alec, hey, I'm not the right person for this. You need to talk to Joe on my team who runs our VoIP division or whatever it is, right? Um, that happens every day to MSPs. And I'm not saying you guys do that. I'm not saying that at all. Alex is phenomenal, right? He's probably texting the sales rep, giving context, doing handoffs, all that. But like, I could see how freaking frustrating it would be to go have a whole conversation like that with a vendor and then have somebody else who I've never heard of or talked to calling me 30 times in a row to ask me if I, attended the party or, whatever, while 30 other people are saying the same thing. So I think it's more being able to be more thoughtful in outreach and responses, where we as an industry, and not as an industry, just sales, outbound, and marketing in general, the bar is very low for what we'll write an email and press send on, or what we'll say when we call someone. So I don't know. I think it's quality. I think we have a quality problem more than a quantity problem, and the quality problem makes the quantity problem worse, because when you have low quality, you have lower conversion rates, so the volume goes up.
That's probably the most descriptive response to that question I've gotten in a long time. Gotta be honest. I appreciate you being like, pretty open about it, right? Because I just think that people need to be receptive to the fact that in order for everybody to move forward, everybody needs to get something out of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
Let's be honest, right? Like, if you go to an event, the event doesn't happen by itself. People have to pay on the other side for that event to happen, right? So like, if you're trying to learn, awesome. If they're trying to get ROI on the other side, needs to happen, or else guess what? It doesn't happen anymore, right? And maybe there's some, things that need to have like a true up, right? Like maybe there shouldn't be an event every single day of the month, but I just think that everybody should be receptive to the fact that everybody needs to get something out of it. That's all. And like, be fair about it. That's all I try and, find a middle ground where everybody understands that, hey, if you're really not interested, just tell them I'm good and unsubscribe and be okay with that, rather than going and creating a firestorm out of it for no reason.
Yeah, like my cell phone numbers and freaking Zoom info or Seamless or whatever out there, and like people call it all the time. And I'm gonna be honest, I got a Zoom number for work and I've never answered it. So like, I don't blame them.
I got you. All those LinkedIn messages.
Yeah.
What do you think about video as the kind of nouveau way of doing the outreach now, right? Like, instead of just an email, instead of just a phone call, doing a more customized video message, whether it's like a Loom or some other platform that allows you to actually embed that.
I think it's great. I haven't mastered doing it at scale, but I've definitely reached out to the sales team multiple times and said, hey, I'm going to make 25 videos today with, accounts you're working. Because a lot of times people I know I've ran into, and they're trying to call them up, and like, I'm trying to save everybody time. Like, hey, like, Chris reached out to me, told me he was trying to get on your calendar. Just wanted to send you a video. Hope you're doing well. Good seeing you last week. Like, that's personal. That definitely helps. Another thing is LinkedIn audio messages. Like how many freaking, hey, blah 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 lead gen services I get on LinkedIn every day. Like, if I get an audio message from someone, that's unique, right? Like, I'm gonna listen to that, at least maybe, right? It's just standing out from the noise. So I'm not saying that, hey, if you switch everything to video, you're gonna win all the time, but being more thoughtful about your outreach and, creating videos that are actually useful, right? Like, hey, I was checking out your website. I see that you're offering XYZ services. I also noticed on your LinkedIn that you have, a director of security, right? I was wondering if there would be a good person that I could reach out to talk about our offering. We could add these services to your stack. We could improve this, blah, 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 blah. That's a lot better than like, whatever, shitty email.
No, that's fair. Last one I have for you. there's been a little bit of like interesting approach on trying to make everybody in your company a content creator. I don't know if it's successfully been pulled off, but like you hear companies who are like, hey, start creating, go online, get in front of a camera, do something, right? Post it to your profile. You never know. And if you get enough people in your company doing that, then like you start to see a cumulative effect happening. What do you think about that approach?
Fuck. Nobody gives a. Am I allowed to say fucking this thing?
You
I
can
don't
say
know.
whatever you want. Go for it.
Nobody gives a fuck what your company page is posting, right? Like nobody cares. Like if you're the CEO of the business, like you got to be the person, or somebody in your organization has to be out there talking, right? And that's how you set the standard. Like if your goal to do social media is to hire an intern who's doing it part-time and fresh out of college and like, hey, post what you want, right? That's not setting the culture of the company. If you're setting a culture of the company, or a culture of a marketing team like we're doing is, we put out valuable content every single day, on LinkedIn and other platforms and generate engagement, talk to people, then other people on the team are going to do it. Like I'm sure you're talking about, Kelsey a little bit there, like she blew up in the past year on social media where, people every time somebody I talk to them, they're like, oh, where's Kelsey? How's she doing? And, part of it's because she's an awesome, awesome, awesome person, who's very thoughtful and remembers people and, is at all the events and works her ass off. But another part of it is she consistently put out quality content on social media for the past year and a half since, we've been working together. And I told her on our first day, I want you to post on social media every day. You're traveling to all these events, it's cool stuff. Start doing it. Here we are a year and a half later.
I know she's doing a great job. And like,
Yeah.
I know she started the podcast and, she's been doing like definitely visible, right? On the thread.
Her podcast is doing better than my podcast. I'm like, look at this. Teacher becomes a master here. Or not, yeah, whatever it is. Or,
I love that.
Student becomes a master.
Yeah, I love that. Like content creation it seems to be the current day standard, right? I just don't think everybody's confident enough to do it. Yeah. So are we going back to trust the process?
I don't know, man. I don't even know anymore. I don't know what this sleeve of Maury's that he's got. I don't know what's up there, man. I feel like our team is maybe strong enough. I don't know. Small chance to win a championship if Harden comes back. Trade him. I don't know what you're going to trade him for. Next year, yeah, we'll have a ton of cap space, but we're coming back with the reigning MVP. I know it comes with an asterisk because of his playoff performance and all that. But you got the MVP, right, on your team, right? You got Tyrese Maxey on your team, right? Mm-hmm. Get this man people to win a championship with. I don't care how you do it. I know that there's tons of stuff and problems from the Colangelo era, the Twitter gate and his normal collars and finding new slant and that craziness that happened and ruined our franchise and set us back from all the process era and the great stuff that Sam Hinkie did. I'll say it. I'm a Sam Hinkie believer. Colangelo and the league and, everybody hates Philly, man. Everybody hates Philly. Real quick to fine us for tampering, right? Nobody else gets it when all these trades happen an hour after the free agency's lifted and stuff. Nothing's going to happen until Damian Lillard gets traded. Nothing's going to happen until Damian Lillard gets traded. Whenever that happens, then all of a sudden maybe it'll happen to us. I don't know. Maybe he ends up there. He did publicly say that he does not want to go to Philadelphia, so maybe he won't go to us. But none of these teams are going to make deals with James Harden until Damian Lillard finds a new home. So we'll see.
That's fair. That's a really good analysis. What do you think about they want to build the stadium in Chinatown?
Hey man, I don't own a car. I love it. I'm like, I from the outside, I'm not in Philly. I like it because of the public transportation access. coming from South Jersey, you can get there really easily. I know that there's problems with coming into the city and parking. Now, one thing, I get that. Another thing, is when I went into Chinatown and saw, a lot of the businesses there, the small mom and pop businesses having signs protesting it. I don't know everything that's going out there. I don't know if they're getting pushed out of their community, all that. So I'm sure there's an element there that I don't know and I'm very ignorant on. But man, I live 2 blocks from Madison Square Garden. I can walk up to it. It's awesome. So
I mean, but
Wells Fargo Center is terrible.
but
So
hold
they need
on,
to do
hold on.
something.
You're a Philly guy. You're living in New York. I got it. But MTA runs 24 hours a day, my friend. Like SEPTA doesn't go to midnight.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like if I want to go to a game, can I get back from the game? That's the problem. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I guess if they take some
regional
10
rail
years.
special schedules, they have to do that. Papco runs all night. So they'll have that to Jersey, and then they'll have to figure out something for the people who actually live in Philadelphia, which are probably the people who are going to get stiffed if it happens.
Yeah. Well, I guess they have 10 years to figure it out if they do this. So maybe SEPTA will be fixed by then. Who knows? Me and you, Jimmy, separate on this topic, right? I've probably taken a train in the US 10 times in my life. Like I drive everywhere. I know you're the opposite, right? You're mass transit guy.
I spend a freaking car payment on Amtrak all the time going to Philly. So
I got you. What's your favorite airline of choice?
by Delta Airlines. I'm
Okay.
one of those. One of those.
You and Alec are best friends on this topic.
Yeah, it's half our conversations are just about that. So
Yeah, Delta status and Delta points.
yeah.
Gotcha, man. Where are we going to see you? And obviously you have your event. I think not next week, but the week after in Dallas.
Next week, Monday, I'll be in Dallas. Back to Dallas.
Awesome.
Back Dallas cybersecurity events.
Cool. And then, like, I'm sure you got a heavy event scheduled between now and the end of the year. But if somebody doesn't catch you at an event, where should they go and find more information about your company and what they can do for them, and maybe talk to someone if they want to know more?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Jimmy Hatzell, or go to our website, cyberqp.com. We've got demo videos of everything. You can go schedule a demo yourself. You don't have to fill out a form or anything. Just pick the time that works for you. And if you just want to do product research, that's totally fine. We got all the videos showing every different feature and how it works. So it's a good website, I think.
Awesome. I am sure we're going to see you guys out on the road shortly. Good luck next week. Hope everything goes well, and we will catch you on the flip side.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
You got it. For everyone else, this session was recorded. Like I told you in the beginning, you'll find it at mspinitiative.com under sessions, and we'll post it like we normally do after this. Make sure to follow Tuesdays, Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern time. That's when we do these sessions live. If not, you'll see them online afterwards. And make sure to check out all the cool stuff that we're doing, for the community, right? All of our stuff's posted online. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.